Something that the cults frequently did, who tortured me and other kids, the interconnected KKK, satanic, and Nazi cults, the intergenerational cults, frequently did, was try to convince us that they were all powerful, that they were all hearing and all seeing, and that they could always know what we did if we broke any rules. And one way that they did this was that they created folks inside with the dissociative identity, because that's what they did from the very beginning to control us, create folks inside who would report back on everything that we did, especially if it was anything that might break rules. So if we were starting to remember, if we tried to talk to anyone, if we tried to escape, if we tried to fight back in any way, if there were folks inside who were talking to each other when we were not supposed to, that part who was taught through torture to report back to the cult would report on us if they knew about what happened. And it makes other folks inside who don't know about that part believe that the cult is all powerful and all seeing and all hearing, because here the cult knows things that they weren't supposed to know. And how do they know it? If it was just like internal in our world, or if it didn't seem like the cult was there when we tried to tell someone, or when we tried to escape, or in all the ways that we tried to fight back. How did the cult know? It makes the programming about that the cult can hear and see us no matter where we are, or that they implanted a chip in us, or that they planted a recording device in us. It makes that programming, which they did through abuse scenarios and mind control, elaborate abuse scenarios where they pretended to implant a chip or an audio device. It makes it seem so much more real, because here's the results, right? Here's the cult knowing things that they could not know. But it's because they created someone inside to report back to the cult, or many someones usually inside. And so for me, when I was still being tortured, I had folks inside that I would hide from those inner reporters who would report back to the cult, because there were folks inside who felt too vulnerable, and there were folks inside who had knowledge or who were working on healing that I didn't want the cult to know about, or that we didn't want the cult to know about. But we weren't always successful in hiding that, but we often were, and that helped protect folks inside, some folks inside, and some knowledge and some healing inside from the cult. Another way to help with that would be to have things that the folks inside who report back agree to tell the cult, certain levels that aren't the deep things that are too vulnerable and hidden. But that means being able to talk to those parts inside, those inner folks who report back to the cult, and help them see that the cult taught them through torture and mind control and lies, and that the cult is not to be trusted, and that the cult is not good and cruel, and that they don't have to do the job. But often those parts who are reporters inside have been through so much torture that they are really, really afraid to do anything else. And often those parts inside who report back will experience torture when they report back, for the cult to make sure that there's nothing that they're holding back. So it's finding ways to protect even them inside without having the cult aware that that's what we're doing, and having ways to gradually change the job of those who report back so that we can get safer. Because if the cult doesn't know healing that's happening, or ways that we are changing jobs inside, or ways that we are trying to tell or fight back, then the cult can't reinforce the programming for that. The cult can't try and make sure that we're going to forget it again, and it helps us in our healing. But we have to be able to work with those folks inside. And that is also about inner communication and inner cooperation, and having someone safe often to work with if we can, having a really good therapist who we trust. It helps to work on all that. It also helps, for me it helped, to ask for everyone inside to look out through the eyes and to listen through the ears, especially when they are with someone safe, like a therapist, and we are talking through the trauma, to see that we are safe, or we can get safe, or we do want this safety, this love, this compassion, that there are better things than being tortured. It was never our fault, and it wasn't our choice. But the folks inside who were who are taught through torture and who are so afraid, it can help them see that there is safety and there is something better, but they have to want it, and they have to work out with ourselves or with a therapist to see that it's worth it to get safe. It is absolutely worth it to get safe. And they can do it, and they can heal, and they can stay alive, and we can all stay alive, but it's working together. And it's also being willing to hear them about what they've been through, the torture and the trauma. And it's hard to hear, but it's really important, and it's a part of the healing, or at least it was for me. And I hope that helps you too.